All right, we're going to do 38.4 today. Again, just one section to continue on our study of how Rome impacted modern civilization. Here's a picture of the Roman Colosseum. It says has inspired stadium builders throughout history. And again, they took a lot of the Greek ideas, built on them. But if you've ever been to a sports arena, very similar. So, architecture and engineering. The Romans' greatest contributions to science and technology came in the fields of architecture and engineering. Roman builders learned from the Greeks, Etruscans, and others. Then they added their own genius to take construction in new directions. So, architecture. The Romans learned how to use the arch, the vault, and the dome. A vault is an arch used to support a roof. A dome is a series of vaults that form a high, rounded roof. The Romans were the first to make widespread use of concrete. This is huge, guys. They made it by mixing broken stone with sand, cement, and water, and then allowing the mixture to harden. With the use of concrete, they were able to build much bigger arches than anyone had attempted before. Roman baths and other public buildings often had great arched vaults. The Pantheon, a magnificent temple, now a church that still stands in Rome, is famous for its huge dome. The Romans also invented a new kind of building, a stadium. This was a large open-air structure. The Romans used concrete to build tunnels into the famous Colosseum in Rome. The tunnels made it easy for spectators to reach their seats. Modern football stadiums still use this feature. And what's really cool about this particular building is they would actually fill it with water up to a certain point, and they would have naval ships come in and have battles that could be viewed. And then they could drain it through the tunnels. It's a pretty cool option for this kind of building. At the top, Roman arches left have been copied and adapted around the world. The Arc de Triomphe in France right is one famous modern example. The grand style of Roman buildings has inspired many architects throughout the centuries. One Roman innovation that was widely copied is the Triumphal Arch. This is a huge monument built to celebrate great victories or achievements. One modern example is the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, France. This monument celebrates the victories of the French Emperor Napoleon in the early 1800s. Today, it is the National War Memorial of France. You can see a Roman influence in the design of many modern churches, banks, and government buildings. A fine example is the Capitol Building, the home of the U.S. Congress in Washington, D.C. It includes arches, columns, and a dome. And the first picture of this chapter shows a picture of the Capitol Building and the dome and everything. Engineering. Picture on the right there. Ancient Roman aqueducts were so well built that some still stand in Europe today. The Romans changed engineering as well as architecture. They were the greatest builders of roads, bridges, and aqueducts in the ancient world. About 50,000 miles of road connected Rome with the frontiers of the empire. The Romans built their roads with layers of stone, sand, and gravel. Their techniques set the standard of road building for 2,000 years. In some parts of Europe, vehicles still drive on freeways built over old Roman roads. The Romans also set a new standard for building aqueducts. They did not invent the aqueduct, but once again, the Romans learned the technique and improved it. Remember, aqueducts were built to bring water into the city. They created a system of aqueducts for Rome. The aqueducts brought water from about 60 miles away to the homes of the wealthiest citizens, as well as to the city's public baths and fountains. The Romans built aqueducts in other parts of the empire as well. The water system in Segovia, Spain, still uses part of an ancient Roman aqueduct. Remains of Roman aqueducts can also be seen in Europe, North Africa, and Asia Minor. Okay, a couple questions for 38.4. You're going to choose 4 Roman architectural and engineering achievements that impress you the most and write a brief description of them. And then what are some examples of how Roman architecture and engineering influences us today? And particularly think about how our modern buildings look because of what the Romans learned from the Greek and the Latins and the Etruscans. So that's all for today, Happy Friday, and we'll finish it next week.